Thank you everyone for attending and bearing with us while we figure out this hybrid meeting situation. This is of course a stakeholder workshop for the Waterfront Eureka Plan, and we're really excited for all of you to be here either in person or virtually. So today we're going to talk about the purpose of the meeting, kind of get reacquainted with the plan area and what we're talking about, the role of the specific plan, so why we're using a specific plan as the tool to develop the waterfront, your priorities for the waterfront, and then we're going to do a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, which will help us kind of talk about what we think is affecting the waterfront and how to make the priorities happen. And then lastly, before we close, we'll talk about kind of the hours in the project outline and timeline as well, so you know kind of where we are in the process and how to provide more input after this meeting. So the purpose of the plan is to provide a roadmap for development and redevelopment of vacant, underutilized sites and buildings along the waterfront. This includes increasing housing units by 115 new units. A vacant site, I think is pretty self-explanatory, but underutilized site is one that isn't developed to its full potential, and there is a reason that the property owner would want to have a new, generally larger and newer use that is generating more profit on it. So today, talking about the plan area, so plan, and of course, most importantly, most of you will be hearing from you. Kind of get reacquainted, here is the planning area. Obviously there's the bay, and then the planning area is made out of 3 districts. These neighborhood districts were created during the 2040 general plan and match that pretty exactly. So that is the commercial bayfront, which is water bayward of Waterfront Drive, and includes the most vacant parcels, but of course also the Humble Bay Aquatic Center and a lot of coastal dependent uses. There's Old Town, which I feel is pretty self-explanatory and what we all think of Old Town is, from B to J Street. And then lastly, the library from J to R, which includes the Humboldt County Library, also Carson Mansion, and then a lot of residential uses. So that's what we're talking about today when we talk about the waterfront, or those 3 areas. So why we're using a specific plan is, for one thing, the general plan calls for it. So this will implement the goals and the vision of the general plan. It also provides CEQA streamlining so that developers, when they come in to create exciting housing units or other development, they won't need to go through an onerous CEQA process, which makes the development process faster and more affordable, which should have development happen more easily and quickly in the project area. And then lastly, just straightforward development standards that are consistent with the general plan, local coastal plan. Again, making it very clear for developers what the city and the residents want to see here, and having it being reduced to red tape so that it will actually happen and not just be pie in the sky development standards. Really, the goal is to turn sites like this in the waterfront into sites like this. So first, we're going to open it up, and everyone should be able to unmute to talk about your priorities. So we wanted to kind of ask around what do you think is most important in the plan area? We have some examples, but you're not limited to them. So we were thinking maybe it's increased housing options around sea level rise, or improving the vibrancy of the streetscapes, having more people on the street, maybe outdoor dining, or going to farmers market, but the street feeling like a vibrant, safe social place. So I'm going to open up the floor so people can introduce themselves and say what their priorities are for the waterfront.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Cole. I'm the owner of Oberon Grill. I wanted to appreciate that this is being looked at in 3 different areas. My area of focus is the commercial bayfront development, because I feel that's going to be the developments that's going to have the most impact within the Old Town and Library District area, and the most impact in the community down the road. There's kind of 5 things I'd really like to see. And I recognize that we're at the pre-planning phase of this, which is why I wanted to bring up these concepts or these potentials. The most important aspect for me is to include outreach and inclusion of tribal space and tribal representation. I feel that there's an opportunity to follow through on the land acknowledgement that is made by the city to allow for them to have a space for expression that is defined by their own goals, not our goals. A second thing that I would like to explore is outreach to Cal Poly. I know they have funding available for development, and they have expressed that they want to be Humboldt Cal Poly, not Arcata Cal Poly. I would like to include an interactive space on the commercial Bayfront area that is focused on education and outreach, so that our community, our youth can engage from a young age with that level of education and with that looking at Humboldt Bay and Humboldt County through either the eyes of environmental or alternative energy, or what aspects from Cal Poly that they'd like to present. The third thing that I want to see, we've identified tourism as a key target economy within this community. I feel it is important for us to include parking as an aspect of recognizing that most tourists will be driving here or using their car to move around this area. As an aspect of that, I want level 3 charging stations, or better as technology develops, to allow for electric vehicle traffic from the Bay Area or for Portland to here, so that they can get here, recharge, and get home. Fourth thing I'm looking at is I would like, in the past, there's been discussion about a RV park or shorter long-term RV park in the Samoa Bridges area in that commercial development. I would like to follow through more on this to help make this happen. I feel like it would help alleviate some of the traffic and parking issues in Old Town, and giving them a safe and secure place that we can curate their experience better, rather than leaving them exposed to the issues of Old Town at the foot of C Street. The last thing that I would like to advocate for, and it's not the last thing, because I think it ties a lot of it together, is I feel we need more family space in Old Town and in downtown. And I feel that with undeveloped space, it is a great opportunity to include that. If we are bringing families here as tourists, we need things for their kids to do. If we are expanding housing options in Old Town and in downtown, we need things for kids and families to do. If we want positive mental health for our kids in this community, we need space for them to play. And it's come up in the past, and I've been confronted with the phrase inappropriate use. And I'm no longer willing to avoid development because of the threat of inappropriate use. I feel like the space is for our community and it deserves to be developed. Those are my 5 big points that I'd like to put out there. I don't necessarily know how to network them all, but I wanted to start to get some of these other groups to the table. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And we are taking notes in the background. So these are all great suggestions and are definitely being recorded. Did anyone else in person have anything they want to talk about their priorities?
Nope, none here in the council chambers. Thank you.
All right, before we move on, I'll open up to anyone on Zoom if they want to unmute and introduce themselves and talk about their priorities. You can also use the chat if you don't want to speak out loud. And I skipped by accident anyway. All right, I'm not seeing anything. We will move to the next portion of our presentation. So the next thing we're going to do, and what was in the bulk of the meeting working on, is a SWOT analysis, which sounds really fancy, but it's really quite straightforward. So to get these priorities implemented, we got to think about what's happening in the planning area. We broke that down into 4 categories: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So basically things that are helpful or harmful. And then if those helpful or harmful items are internal or external. So before we get started, I'm going to walk through some examples and then we'll open it up. So something that I thought was a helpful internal item for the waterfront was all the historic buildings. They're beautiful, they draw tourism. They're just a really special sense of place in the planning area. And they're obviously, we can control it, protect them, enhance them. So it's an internal helpful item of strength. The other helpful but external item is Cal Poly Humboldt. I am a very proud graduate of Humboldt State, and obviously having Cal Poly Humboldt be, I think it's what's going to double enrollment and really bring people to the region and expand again beyond Arcata and have facilities in Eureka and other parts of the county certainly is an external opportunity bringing people, finances, and development to the area. Something we thought was harmful but internal was the current local coastal plan standards. So if you go to our website, waterfronteureka.com, and we'll pop that in the chat, there's currently a background report there that explains the difference in the local coastal plan standards, which are approved by Coastal Commission, and the general plan. And the general plan allows for a lot more. The city is currently working on the new local coastal program to allow for more development in the waterfront, and that should allow for easier and right-sized development. And the last one, the most obvious threat that is external and very harmful to project areas will arise both the commercial bayfront and a lot of Old Town, and I can pull up a map if that's helpful later in the meeting. But a lot of it is vulnerable to sea level rise. A lot of it is already flooded during king tides and storm events, and so really coastal flooding and working around that is a threat we need to be thinking about. So I'm going to switch my screen and share a blank version of this and open up the floor so everyone can talk about what they think the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats are, and we'll kind of get a collaborative board going, really setting the stage for what our planning team should be ready to address when writing the policies and standards. So I'm going to switch over now and you can start thinking about that. So I'm going to put it into full screen. 1 second. Nope, that's not right. There we go. So Henry from my team is behind the scenes. So if you just want to write things in the chat or say them out loud in person or on Zoom, we'll start popping them on this board.
The diverse business community.
Perfect.
I would see that internal as existing there already.
Okay, or it could be external. Yeah, how would we define that with our strong existing business community? Would that be an external?
I think that's an
Or
internal, I think that's a
internal.
strength, an internal helpful thing.
Okay.
I feel we have environmental strengths as far as climate, as opposed to higher temperature or higher water threat areas.
So we have nice, cool weather and lots of water. So that's a benefit, although sea level rise might be a threat.
Can be. And I think that's, as we're having this conversation, it's development of that area in being aware of sea level rise by design can at least mitigate part of that.
Right. Did you hear that?
At external helpfuls, I really feel of the tribes.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really all of the tribes in Humboldt County. And I actually also think a strength is being the county seat. And I know that there's back and forth about, is that a strength or is that a not? But I feel it is a strength because it's part of what connects the rest of the county to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in the digital era, a lot of more of that communication is happening remotely, but it's still a draw that if people want to participate in both either city or county government, they eventually have to come here.
Yeah.
Okay. Harmful internal is, oh, sorry. Harmful internal I would view as gaps in healthcare and mental health care. And I don't know if that's internal or external. I would probably call that internal. Or I think it's both, because I think we have people that come here from out of the area that need services, and they're here because environmentally it doesn't kill them. I think we have definite needs in child health care and child development. And I know I'm not saying that in the best way or the most clear way, but the experience of kids in Eureka has gaps in access to education, access to positive space, and access to mental health. And be aware of it or include it when it's able.
Right. Kind of just the resources around childhood.
Yeah. And I'll frame it this way. I grew up here. The joke when I grew up here was that our kids were our biggest export. And I would like that not to be true. Now I know we are a very remote area and we're very isolated, but I would like there to be opportunities for professional development here from youth upward, rather than it being you have to leave to gain experience and then choose to come back.
Right.
Anybody else want to hop in with this thing? I'm feeling a little can you describe that T SWOT, that harmful external?
Yeah. I mean, and I think silver ice probably is just the easiest example there. But it's something that we can't control. In other plans, we think about, the Amazonification, losing business to maybe big box or online retailers would be something that's happening more thematically, that city policy can't affect, but is hurting either business or the environment.
So I think this practice is hard to separate from the overall issues of Eureka, because I really feel the health of Eureka is intertwined with the health of the districts described. And so I would absolutely say the external threat is financial stability within our economy, economic development, and access to healthcare. And those are going to continue to be difficult problems. And I know they exist beyond our community. But we're going to face it in a very isolated way. I feel a internal benefit is going to be our access to bandwidth, especially if we as a city are able to tie into any of the future fiber optic cable developments that's proposed to come through. And I think that could support a lot of remote work. It could support a lot of ability for quality employment online that can support a population. But then that also leads to the internal negative or internal harmful of housing costs. Would that be external or internal? I mean, yeah.
The external, it's not, it could be both, I guess.
And
you're thinking the permitting is what.
Right. And I reckon, like, I'm coming from a business point of view where it's, so I have a hard time of separating, what is the city view as internal as opposed to external.
Yeah, I would say housing supply is internal and housing cost is a little bit external.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're saying really important. Climate refugees and, people that are now working on Zoom, primarily. I think that I'm actually surprised we haven't seen a lot more influx into Humboldt County, as people don't need to be in the Bay Area or other places as much. That certainly is really good, but they're bringing money up.
I'm still seeing new people that I'm meeting that said, "Oh, I moved up right before the pandemic," or "I've been up here for about a year," and I'm just starting to meet them in the community or to see them out participating, as opposed to being sequestered away.
Right.
I would love to get more in that. What's internal helpful? Beyond a diverse business community. Anybody else have any insight on that one?
I think if people are struggling to say anything about strengths, like, what are your favorite things about your community? What makes you love Eureka and love the waterfront? It's such a special area. And those are really the strengths of what people love about place.
Well, and a lot of that is sliding down to that external area as far as environmental or community. And by community, I mean, the relationships that are developed have been pretty stable and pretty committed to participating in the city or participating in the districts that we're talking about. It's rare that you find somebody that doesn't have a strong opinion about Old Town one way or the other, or the waterfront one way or the other. People really care. And it manifests in different ways, but there is definite passion about what people want to see, and perhaps that fits in that area.
Yeah. So
I think involved community does fit in strengths. Do you want to add that, Henry?
the passion of the people.
Architecture, the existing architecture is a strength. The existing public spaces are a strength, as far as Clark Plaza, the gazebo. The acoustics of the gazebo are incredible. It's hard to say, like, the history of the area is a strength, and that, I think, as we move forward, more comes about storytelling of individuals and storytelling of how the past has impacted us currently and where we want to take it, rather than being more about specific data or specific dates. I think it's about how our past and our history has kind of informed how we engage.
Right. Does anyone on Zoom have any comments for this? And again, you can post it in the chat if you don't feel comfortable unmuting yourself. We would love to hear from you too. All right, I am not hearing anything.
I have one more helpful internal, I think, is there's like a drive for improvement, and I think everybody just wants to make it bright and shiny and vibrant.
Absolutely. All right, and with that, I mean, I'm happy to have any more comments, but if we are feeling like we've really done our SWOT, staff doing open up just broader conversations or have me pull the map up like we did yesterday.
I'm just not seeing sea level rise.
He's mentioning that we should just put sea level rise on there as an
Mhm.
external threat, since we have talked about it.
Sure.
Thanks. Cool. Thank you. That's it for us here.
I can bring up the map of the project area yesterday when we talked through that, if that sounds like a good plan. Kristen is nodding, so I'm going to go with that. All right, can everyone see the map?
Yes.
Perfect. And I know yesterday in our last one, we were talking about potential places for development or improvement. So if anyone had, now looking at the map, wanted to talk about where public or private improvements should be, we can turn into that sort of conversation.
Yeah, and if you see any new connections to the waterfront, particularly maybe from the library district that may be needed, specific areas. And then if you have any ideas of specific development that can accommodate sea level rise, because I know you said you do support development in the area for the community, but any ideas on, besides maybe armoring or elevating, how do you feel that we could accommodate the development in the sea level rise hazard areas?
That's the hardest one, and I'll talk about that one first.
Really hard question you just asked him.
Yeah. I do feel that an aspect of it is going to be involving piling and pilings and elevating from previous high tide marks, as far as where that the interface between water movement during tidal shift happens. I think the really important aspect is actually going to be working with the county in discussing how they're going to approach sea level rise, because I feel they have such a larger area to look at. They're going to have a solution that's more developed than just how is it going to affect the commercial bayfront. So if we can engage with them mutually to see how we want to address the bay overall rather than just one strip of land, I think that would be the most beneficial approach. Now, does that directly address this? No, it doesn't. Does it become that we build a little further back and create more green space in that transition area? That might be part of it. But I would also say, I think not developing in that area isn't necessarily a solution that we should accept.
Do you see any, are you aware of any access from the library district to the bayfront that we should be considering?
I would honestly look at the existing homeless traffic, because they're the ones that have defined the space that they can easily get around and move around. Now, if we can then rehabilitate some of those areas to more structured space, it would prevent more erosion and prevent more environmental impact. Yeah. I would love to see more I would love to see more access specifically in the F Street to G Street area. And I know that whole lot is kind of fenced off at the moment. But that's an area that I would love to be able to have access to the waterfront. And, it's the area where it just like, yeah. Yeah.
I'm curious. I like the idea of, more family space in Old Town, and I'm curious, like what kinds of things we're talking about.
There's the spectrum. A playground is step one. I would love either a seasonal or permanent fair space. And I know that is way out there as a dream, but I think that would offer more enjoyment and more investment in the local community about why they would enjoy coming down to the bay. One of my favorite memories is looking back over Eureka on one of the Ferris wheels that was down there. And it was one of those small window opportunities, and it stuck with me for 15 years. And that's something I would like to be able to share. So yes, that's, can we make anything happen we want? Yes. But I also recognize within the space that we have available, it's going to be difficult. So within the, in the middle of that, I would say absolutely more space similar to the Discovery Museum. My hope would be able to help the Discovery Museum have another location or move back into Old Town, because when they were in Old Town, it was well used. And I know it became about space and availability after the renovation to the Carson building. But what they offered was fantastic. And I would like to have that back in that area, especially if we're getting more residential spaces planted for that neighborhood. That help?
More green space.
I would say more green space, even like a small dog park. Because we do have a lot of visitors that do come to the area in Old Town and downtown, and they do bring their dogs, and there's not really any there's a lot that a lot of people use, but it is a private lot, and it's not intended to be a dog park. But it is really nice to be able to be along the waterfront and actually be able to like sit in the grass, or have be able to have a picnic or something. So I think like a well manicured green space, not just a wild, not feral ground. So
And a play structure would be great, was added in there.
And in terms of increasing density in the area, I hear concerns about parking. Are there other concerns or interest in that?
I do have concerns, but I want to see it happen. I don't recognize the need, and I recognize the benefit. One of the biggest concerns that I have just for quality of life as that expands is access to perishables and the things that people need. I just have to say, I don't think the co-op is enough of a market to support all that we're saying is going to move in there. The co-op is a specialty market. It is not price appropriate for low-income housing. And I'd like that recognized, and it kind of viewed how how can we as a city incentivize or develop other options for that type of service? Yeah. And be it, be it development of what else is available at the Beret Center location, as far as where you've got empty sections by Longs or CVS now. Sorry, Longs is a long time ago. But looking at some of those commercial hubs that do have vacancies, how can we get more options there? And also how can we return to more of the corner market model that used to exist with California Fruit and Deli, or fresh produce market, neighborhood markets like that. And if there's a way that the city can make the startup of those businesses more achievable.
Along those lines, I would also include like pharmacy and hardware store, like those household items that you need. Like if you just need thumbtacks to hang something up in your apartment, you're going to have to go out of all three of these districts to find those things. I would also suggest like a community garden, a community garden space where people could grow fresh produce and, put work in and reap those benefits.
Also, to everyone on that's attending virtually, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up or write in the chat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, my name is Lynn McKenna, and it kind of ties in with some of the things that several other people have mentioned. I would like to see some kind of a multi-use facility building similar to what they've done with the ferry building in San Francisco. They took that empty building and they put in movable partition walls, and they have all kinds of different things going on in there. They have retail sales, they have educational exhibits. This is something that would tie in with education. It would tie in with family activities. It should be on a rotating basis, so people would want to come and see what's changed and what the new exhibits are in there, similar to what happens at Arts Alive. There's new things happening every month, and that draws people to the Old Town area. You could get Humboldt Made involved in it and feature a lot of their members who specialize in, making things, specialty products. You could get like Blue Ox and organizations like that, similar to Williamstown, where they showed the trades and the old ways things were done. We have a lot of that available here with all of our Victorian architecture and the specialty needs that are, required to maintain those buildings. It could be you could have entertainment in there. You could feature things with the Native American tribes. They could rotate and have an educational center on things about the tribes. It would be something that would draw tourists, but it would be a year-round draw for our local families and community members as well. Hey, Marvin, I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'm almost done. So come on over. All right, what? All right, I'll be there in a few minutes. Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, I've been to the ferry building a couple of times in San Francisco, and it's just, of course, they have a bigger population to draw from, but it would be something that would be multi-use, that would not be just strictly for tourists, but would also be an ongoing attraction to our local residents as well.
Awesome, thank you. We have about 10 minutes left. If anyone else has something they want to add, and if not, we can wrap up and share the website and future opportunities.
I have a quick kind of logistical question.
Sure.
It's kind of about how the commercial bayfront region was defined, and how is there a way to include the old Eureka Ice location in this concept or in this discussion, or is that going to be part of a separate, honestly, a separate process? It is the other side of no Coast Seafood. So it goes Jack's and the Coast Seafood, and it's the big empty lot where it burned down between Coast Seafood and Vista.
I think maybe Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's in our CDI area.
Yeah, so it's a different beast because that area is zoned for coastal dependent industry. So the western boundary here was based on that. That's the edge of the commercial waterfront zoning, which so as part of this plan, we're gonna modernize our zoning for the area. And so we're thinking of how to, we're also though working on this comprehensive LCP update to also address the coastal dependent industrial zone. So love to hear your feedback on that. What we're trying to do is right now, those areas are very limited in what can go on there. So we're trying to revise the code to still continue to prioritize commercial fishing west of C Street, but allow other uses there that to support it and make it more vibrant. Yeah, but curious to hear your thoughts because that's us, not part of this project, but definitely something we're working on.
But and I think my immediate reaction is, I don't necessarily care where any of these things necessarily happen, as long as we get progress or there's opportunity for improvement. And that location to me speaks more to a partnership with Cal Poly, and utilizing that space in a way that is about commercial development, either of power or utilization or mitigating the two. Because I know there's been a lot of discussion between the fisheries, not the fisheries, but the fishermen, and what the fishing area is going to look like with the offshore power situation. So if there can be a partnership between the two to support each other, that could be a location for that. Sorry, instant brainstorm.
And to clarify, the boundaries of each district came from the 2040 general plan. I guess to clarify further that the 2040 general plan also called for a specific plan in this area. So even though the Coastal Commission has not certified the 2040 general plan, we're hoping with this effort, as well as what Kristen is working on for the local coastal program update, we can get the coastal zone and the inland zone on one page with permitting and planning. Thank you.
Rose, do you want to go over the schedule now?
Absolutely. All right, so this is our timeline so far with outreach. In March, we had a virtual workshop and launched our website. You can actually watch the workshop on our website, waterfronteureka.com. We added some FAQ there in April. We had a second workshop in June and launched our survey. So you can again click survey and watch that workshop on the website. Earlier this month, we went to Planning Commission, City Council. We presented our outreach so far and some scenarios. And then right now we're doing stakeholder interviews. We have 2 more tomorrow. And then later in the fall, the winter timeline, we'll be having a draft plan come out, which you can read and provide comment on. And then we're going to Planning Commission and City Council for adoption, kind of in the early spring of next year. And then here's kind of an overall timeline. You can see we're going to have our draft plan coming out later this fall and available for public comment. And then we'll be going to Planning Commission, City Council. Those will be opportunities for people to participate in person and virtually if they have more comments as the plan starts coming along. And I'm going to put our plan website in the chat just so that everyone can go there as they would like to.
If
But
you
again, it's
haven't
waterfronteureka.com.
you haven't taken the survey yet, please take the survey.
Yes, please. All right, unless staff has anything else, I can close this out. Perfect. We really appreciate everyone that came both virtually and in person. This is such an important asset to the city of Eureka, and I think to all of our personal experiences that getting this meaningful feedback and really on the ground experience will make this much better plan. Especially appreciating the time, maybe skipping lunch to be with us today. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, please visit the website. You can sign up for future updates. You can email the team directly there if you have more ideas after this meeting. And we're just really excited to be part of this.